So I think people are watching, but I don't actually know. If you guys are, go ahead and leave a comment. But I'm basically just going to be doing a study with me. So if you guys need to get work done and you want to study along, then I'm just going to be working on my dissertation. So you guys can join along with me, but you guys can also leave comments and I can answer some questions along the way. I'm not entirely sure how this works. So let me just bring this over here so you can, I don't quite know how to angle this thing, but hello, Katie. Got Kendra, hello. Thanks for joining. All right. Yeah, so Katie said that she thinks that people get more work done together. I definitely agree. I have been doing study sessions with my friend Chloe over Zoom, and it's been super helpful. Someone said, Daisy asked when do I expect my dissertation to be finished? As soon as I'm able to finish it, basically. I give myself a deadline that I obviously have to finish it before I leave for New Haven. So I've just been slowly chipping away at it. I'm such a perfectionist that I just work through the slow nitty gritty of it and I keep editing it. So we'll see. My plan is to try to get a relatively full draft done today, actually, and send it off to my advisor. And then we'll go from there and see what she says. I would normally play music while I'm working, but because I'm going to be actually saving this to YouTube, I am not going to be playing music just because I don't want to get copyright. So that's where we're at. And let me know if you guys are studying also. Yes, so moving vlogs are coming very soon. I leave in 19 days. Oh, shoot. Sorry, I dropped my phone. Yeah, I leave in 19 days. So the moving vlogs and the Yale vlogs are imminent. Editing. Are you editing a final paper? And then you said you're moving into reading for your Mesoamerican archaeology class. That sounds really cool. And then Kendra said she's working on stuff for her summer class. So we'll all be getting lots of work done. Oh, editing a vlog. Okay, cool. So you're getting non-academic work done, but well, what type of vlog are you working on? Is it just a week in my life? If you guys do not follow Katie also has a really great channel about being a transfer student. She just transferred to Berkeley for her undergrad. So if you guys are looking for more study tubers to check out, then definitely check out Katie's channel. And hers is the Vintage Academic. Okay, great. So you're doing another a weekly vlog about summer courses and transitioning from CC to Cal. I'm excited for that one. I like watching Katie's videos, so definitely check her out if you guys, like I said, if you guys are looking for more academic study tubers. But this week I have a video going up tomorrow all about annotation software and how to annotate PDFs and books and basically how to read effectively. And then I have a vlog going up on Friday, which will be a weekly vlog. And then if you guys follow me on Instagram, you'll see that my content calendar is very full. So there's a lot coming this week and over the next couple weeks. So I guess, do you guys want me to like talk through while I'm working or just like continue as per usual? I haven't done a live study with me, so I don't know how these are supposed to go. So would you prefer just like silence me, like just doing my work, or do you guys want me to kind of talk through the process as I'm writing? Because I can do either. I just don't entirely know what people want. So leave a comment and let me know what you guys would prefer. Okay, so Katie says she wants to hear through my thought process. So if I can get at least like one other person's opinion, I would appreciate it. Just to see what you guys would like to see. So I can, again, your options are I can either just kind of work in silence and we can all work together, or I can also talk about the process of writing my dissertation and kind of what I'm working on at the moment, kind of in the way that I would for a normal vlog, but now it's live. Okay. Hey, Chloe. So currently I'm working on a section focused on kind of the lived realities of, okay, let me like backtrack a little bit just because I don't know how much you guys have like noticed or paid attention to in my blogs. But basically my dissertation is about slave laws that were implemented in the late 17th century that stated that children born of enslaved women would follow the condition of their mother. And so the first section of my dissertation focuses on the historiography. So essentially the historical arguments about the origins of those laws and what precedents they're drawing from. And now I'm working on the section which is like the lived reality of those laws and what was the effect. So the first part of that is looking at rates of natural increase within the colonies. So instead of depending on the slave trade, this kind of internal slave trade develops and they become knowledgeable that if they can manage to kind of mechanize enslaved women's reproductive capacities, they'll be able to kind of birth future generations of enslaved laborers. So there's a little subsection about natural increase, focusing primarily on Philip Morgan's slave counterpoint, which you don't need to know if you don't study slave history. But then the second section is looking at systems of sexual violence and coercion. And so working on the section about other types of interracial sex and interracial sexual relationships. So specifically looking at the system of concubinage and how historians have kind of defined that. And there's two kind of differing definitions of what concubinage is. And so that's kind of what I'm discussing at the moment in order to highlight that sexual violence was innate to the system of slavery and of control, but that there were also other types of negotiations and relationships that existed among enslaved women and enslaved men and white male slave owners and their wives. So that's what we're looking at the moment. And that's what I'm kind of working through. So currently I'm working on the section about interracial sex. So if you guys have any questions about that, I'm happy to answer it. What has been the best part of writing my dissertation so far? I'd say just the process of it and kind of piecing things together. I think of academic writing as kind of a puzzle. And so I don't know if Chloe's still on this live stream, but back when we were in college together, we were at UCLA. I remember I had this one paper on Black loyalists. So basically, enslaved and free Black men that joined the British Army during the American Revolution. And I just had like stacks of books everywhere. And I'd have an idea and then I would think about like, okay, who might have said something about this? And so I'd pull from my stack of books. And so whenever I'm writing, I'll show you guys. So whenever I'm in my writing process, I always have like a massive stack of books with me. Chloe says she remembers that particular weekend. It was a rough one. We stayed up for multiple days at a time, and Chloe ended up actually going to the hospital. So that's another story for another day. But I always have this stack of books with me. And the reason being that I like being able to kind of go back into the literature and kind of piece together the puzzle of the historians' arguments and how they're using sources and all of that, because I try to be very specific about who I'm citing and where I'm kind of drawing from. So, like, for example, yesterday I was looking primarily at Edmund Morgan's American Slavery, American Freedom, and kind of going through and looking in the index and kind of going through the chapters and trying to figure out where in the book he might have discussed slave law precedent. So that's what I find to be the most fun. It's just kind of the writing. I like the writing process. I also really like the lit review process. I just like reading. I like learning. So I don't know. I like the one part that I have the most difficult time with though is how much a perfectionist I can be about the actual writing. So for example, like the introduction of my dissertation took weeks. I mean, I still edit it. Like I am not entirely done like fidgeting with it. So it's a process that never seems to end. So that's the part that I find a little challenging and frustrating, is just the amount of just like brain energy it takes for me to write, because I'm so particular. And I'm very particular because of professors I had in undergrad, one in particular actually, who were very tough on, and I owe everything to that one professor in particular, because I am a much better writer because of it, but it also makes me a very cautious writer. So that is the best part and the worst part. Chloe also mentioned that I'm very bad about skipping around sections. I'm somebody that chronologically. I've been a little better about that with this particular project, but I find it so much more, what's that, comforting, I suppose, to work chronologically, just because then I can kind of understand the flow of the essay that I'm working on. But I'm trying to get better. And that'll definitely have to change a little bit when I'm doing my PhD, because it's a very long project that I will be working on in the next couple years. That's a great question. Okay, so someone asked, so Samantha Stevens asked, hey, I hope your neck and back are feeling okay. Any tips, sexual recommend back support while writing? So if you guys saw my last video, I hurt my neck last weekend and it's doing so much better. I saw my chiropractor multiple times and she's a miracle worker. I honestly, it was so painful. So I'm really glad that it's doing better. I am probably not the best one to give advice on taking care of your back while studying because I'm terrible about it. Chloe and I lived together in undergrad. I think Chloe's still alive, but when I was an undergrad and still today, I sit in the weirdest positions when I study. So that definitely doesn't help my situation. But one thing that I have been implementing this week and will be implementing going forward is taking stretch breaks and working on my posture and just trying to sit up straight. I also try not to lean forward with my neck. I try to make sure that I keep my neck back. And then also I have my computer on a stand now, so that way I don't look down. So that's been helpful. I have really bad like mid back and upper back pain. I don't really have lower back pain, knock on wood. So I have like a really good quality chair. That's one thing I highly recommend. Putting your computer on a stand so it sits higher so you aren't looking down, and taking stretch breaks are kind of my suggestion. Katie asked, am I going to be teaching at Yale as part of my PhD? So yes, I will be teaching at Yale. I will be a TA starting my 3rd year. So I still have a little ways to go before I will actually start teaching. But yes, I will be teaching, and I'm not entirely sure whether it'll be in the history or African American Studies departments or both. A lot of the classes that I end up taking or that professors that I'm working with will be teaching are often cross-listed. So I think I will likely be helping with the Slavery in the Atlantic World lecture at some point in my academic career. That's a good question, Abby. So I want to end up on the East Coast. I have been waiting to move to the East Coast since I was a little kid. I just absolutely love the Northeast. My dream is to end up in DC. I love Washington, DC. There's just like some kind of like heartfelt like calling whenever I'm there. I love the city. I've loved it since I was a child. Every single time I go back, I just have that immediate feeling, like the gut feeling that I'm meant to be there. And so that's where I'd like to end up. I love California. I have family in the Midwest. My mom's in Minnesota. I just love the East Coast. And so I'm hoping to end up there in the long term. And then, so I'll be in New Haven for at least 6 years for my PhD, and then we'll see what happens with my law degree. And Liam is going to be moving to New York or somewhere in the Northeast within the next 2 years. And then we've always talked about eventually ending up in DC. That's where I personally would really like to be. So it's a good question. No one's asked me that before. So I just said that I would kind of talk through the process. So I'm currently working, I kind of went back and I'm actually going to work on that natural increase section just because I had an idea. And so I remember a quote from Thomas Jefferson where he specifically talks about how enslaved women are more valuable because they are able to give birth to further generations of enslaved laborers. So I'm trying to look for that quote. And that will kind of be I try to always start paragraphs or sections with some kind of primary source, some kind of story, something to kind of ground the piece. And so, for example, when I started the section about the lived realities of particular Ventrum and its effects, I focused on Elizabeth Hemings, who was the mother of Sally Hemings. And if you guys don't know, Sally Hemings gave birth to the children of Thomas Jefferson. They had, I put this in air quotes, relationship, and it's under much historical debate what type of relationship that actually was. But nonetheless, the facts are that she was 14 when their relationship began in France. But anyway, the beginning of this section, I'm focusing on Elizabeth Hemings, who's Sally Hemings' mother, because she is the daughter of a woman who was enslaved off the shores of West Africa, and she actually had multiple children with John Wales, who was the father of Thomas Jefferson's wife. So a little complicated, but nonetheless, she is kind of my example of how Particular Ventrum came to impact enslaved women directly, because she was enslaved because her mother was an enslaved African from the shores of West Africa. And although her father, who was a white captain, offered to buy her, she was a slave, and the person who owned her at that time refused to let her go. And then she had Sally Hemings along with several other children. I think she ended up having like 11 children, and all of those children were then enslaved. And so, but she also gets to see some of her grandchildren freed. So she's kind of she's just an interesting figure in history to kind of surround an analysis around, because she is kind of in the dead center, like at the very beginning, but also kind of in the center of this system of slavery as we come to know it in the 19th century. So she's part of the English colony of Virginia. She lives to see the birth in the new American Republic. She is enslaved herself. She sees her children enslaved, but she also sees her grandchildren begin to gain their freedom. She's also born at a time when natural increase within the colonies begins to become kind of a profitable mechanism. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. And I'm just going to keep on going. If you guys have any questions, then please let me know. But I'm just going to kind of talk through what I'm working on as I'm going through it. Katie asked a question related to YouTube. It said, how do you keep your vlogs interesting with a similar day-to-day schedule? I'm still trying to figure that out. Mostly, I just try to talk about the different pieces of what I'm thinking about and working on. And so that kind of changes week to week. And I know that that's something I'm definitely a little concerned about with being at Yale and being alone in my apartment for months, because we're going to be online. So I just try to keep ideas about like different kind of themes for vlogs. I know that I want to do a vlog when I get to Yale about how much PhD students actually read. And so while that could be like an informative video, I think it'd be more fun to show as a vlog, So that'll be the theme of the vlog. And I also want to do like what I eat in a week or what I eat in a day and those kinds of things. So I think try to look up certain themes and try to be creative about it as a way to kind of center the video. What will be the overall structure of my PhD program? So I talked about this in the US versus UK PhD video, but my program has 2 years of coursework. And then on the third year, you are writing your prospectus. And so it's basically like your research proposal for the dissertation, which you'll then defend. And then you have your comp exam, so your comprehensive exams. And then, hey, Carmen. And then from there, you have your fourth year, which is beginning to work on the dissertation and teaching. And also you're teaching that third year, if I didn't mention that. So then the fourth year, you're teaching, working on your dissertation, doing your preliminary research, probably doing some field work. The fifth year, you're meant to just completely be focused on your dissertation. So you can be anywhere in the world while you do that. I will likely just stay in New Haven, but we'll see. A lot of my archives are going to be in England, at Yale, or in Virginia, so long as this project remains viable. And then the sixth year, if you need a sixth year, you come back, you're working on your dissertation, and you teach. So that's the general gist of how it's supposed to look. I am not entirely sure what my program is going to look like, just because I'm also going to, hopefully, fingers crossed, do a law degree as well. So that'll kind of change my timeline, but we will see. I'm hoping that I can at least use some of my teaching credits to count towards my law degree, but we'll figure that out at a later date. I need to wait till I'm at Yale and to kind of talk to my advisor and talk to some of the other professors about what they think about that program. So I've got two questions. So Becca asked, tell us more about your law school journey. What law are you planning on studying? So my law school journey is a little rocky at the moment, because if you guys watched my last video, then you may know that I've had to postpone my plans by a year. But ultimately, I want to become a legal constitutional lawyer. That's always been my dream. It's been not always been my dream. It's been my dream for the last 5 years since I gave up my full-time professional equestrian career. So that is what I'd like to do with my law degree. I think that there is a huge benefit to studying history and studying law, because especially as I'm doing like even this dissertation, I'm finding that legal scholars miss a huge chunk of historiography and they aren't in conversation with historians. And I find that historians are a little lacking in actually using legal methodologies or actually kind of conversing with lawyers and legal professors in their work. So I think that there's a benefit to having a conversation and using methodologies from both disciplines. And then the other question I got, do many students tend to start working on their thesis in the first 2 years, or is it strictly coursework? So I plan on kind of working on my dissertation the first 2 years, just because I plan on kind of taking this project that I'm working on now and just expanding it. I would like to do some field work next summer. And I mean, ideally, I would have liked to do it in the spring, but we'll just see where we're at. I will have to make multiple trips to Washington, D.C., to the archives in Virginia. There's some county court records that I want to look at in Virginia. And in addition to that, there's a lot at the Beinecke at Yale. So that's one of the reasons I decided to go to Yale. So I will be doing some preliminary work for my dissertation, for my PhD dissertation, that is, while I'm at Yale doing my coursework for the first 2 years. But I also want to use that time to kind of explore, look at other areas of history using methodologies that are currently in use in Black studies. So I have classes that I have to take in literature. I have to take classes in the social sciences. There's a lot I want to do in terms of taking more classes on gender and sexuality and looking a little further into the 19th century. So there's a lot I want to do. There's a lot I want to learn. So I do plan on working on my dissertation a little bit the first 2 years, but I'm also going to allow myself to explore a little bit. How did you like studying at Oxford versus the US? I hear it's more exam-based. So in terms of undergrad, Oxford is more exam-based in the study of history. But in terms of postgrad, it is more focused on, at least mine was more focused on the writing. So this dissertation that I'm currently writing. So that's it. How did I like studying at Oxford? I am going to do a full review video on Oxford. There's a few things that I want to be very careful about discussing after I have received my final grade. There were some instances and some things that happened at Oxford that that were quite negative and did have a negative impact on my experience there. But I also had some really great experiences at Oxford. I met some incredible people. My supervisor is just such an amazing woman, and I'm so glad I got to work with her. And I loved the school. I loved the city. My college was incredible. The community at my college was great. So I really enjoyed Oxford for some reasons, and then I also had a very, very negative experience in others. Then the only other experience that I had studying in the US is undergrad. So at UCLA, I have nothing bad to say about my time at UCLA. It was, I would go so far as to describe my undergraduate experience as magical. I had the most eye-opening, inspirational, just incredible experience at UCLA. I got to work with all the professors I wanted to work with. I met the most incredible friends. I have nothing bad to say about UCLA. I feel like I will be a Bruin at heart forever. I love that school. And Oxford has a very dear place in my heart, but not in the same way that UCLA does. My program is funded. So yes, I will be paid a salary for my PhD at Yale, and I will talk more about that in the future. I have a lot of budgeting videos coming, talking about how much I'm paying for rent and how much I'm getting paid by Yale for my PhD and all of that. But it is a very generous stipend for the humanities and for living in New Haven. I will say grad students still need to be paid more. It is definitely an issue, especially in the humanities. But I'm very lucky that I'm going to a private institution in a city that's not very expensive in terms of living costs. So yes, my program is fully funded. And I get health insurance, which is one of the best parts. For anybody that's been around since the beginning of the live, I finally found that quote from Thomas Jefferson that I wanted to use. So I'm going to go ahead and find it. Here we go. Cynthia, do you live in, are you talking about Oxford, or are you talking about DC? So Cynthia asked, it's so good that, or said, she said, it's so good to, so good you had a nice time in the city. Oh, in Oxford. Okay, I answered that for myself. Just had a blonde moment. All right, the quote has been acquired. Someone said, I actually don't know what a constitutional lawyer does with their degree. Can you tell us? So my ultimate goal would be to become a legal history scholar at a law school, so be a professor, and to hopefully be someone that is called upon to answer questions about the Constitution. And for example, during the impeachment trials for Trump, they brought in 3 constitutional lawyers from different law schools. I think it was from Stanford, George Washington, and Harvard, if I'm not mistaken. And basically, their job is to look at kind of the original intent of the founders, look at the Constitution and the Federalist Papers, and basically everything that's produced at that time, and provide guidance to legislators, so to the Senate and to the House, about what certain things in the Constitution mean and how they should be interpreted. So that's basically what a constitutional lawyer does. So it's a very academic legal job. So that's my ultimate goal, is that I love history. I have loved the founding and studying the founding since I was a kid. Like I can't tell you why. The Constitution, the Federalist Papers, the early founding, the early republic is just one of the times in history that I'm just like most drawn to studying. I don't have my bags over there, but I actually have like a pocket Constitution that I carry around with me just because I like reading it. What's your favorite part of the process? Conceptualizing, research, or writing? I like it all, but for different types of reasons. So I have a bunch of different concepts and different projects that I would like to work on in the future. And I have them written down in a document, and I will hopefully be able to write those papers at some point in my career. And during my PhD, I also would like to try to get published as much as possible during my PhD. If you guys listen to my podcast, I did an interview with Dr. Kyle Mays, who's an old professor of mine. And his recommendation is that during a PhD, you need to get published as much as you can. So that is what I plan to do. So I like the conceptual work of academia and research. I really like the lit review stage. I love diving into the literature and seeing what historians have said and looking at what sources they've used. I love going to the archives. I find that to be just like really tricky and fun. Disappointing at times, because sometimes you go into the archives and you don't find what you wish was there. Especially as a legal history scholar, there's a lot that got burned during the Civil War. So super. A lot of the legal documents from the colonial era in Virginia are just gone. So that's disappointing, but I like the archives. And I think the writing stage is what I find to be the most challenging. I love and hate it. And I think that most academics would tell you the same. Katie asks, what made you apply to the master's program in the UK? I'm starting to look at possible master's programs, but I have no idea where to look. So my grandma just texted me. Done in. So I actually studied abroad the summer between my junior and senior year, and that's what led me to kind of consider applying to Oxford and Cambridge. And ultimately, there's a bunch of reasons. So when I decided that I wanted/needed to do a master's before I applied for a PhD, I wanted to make sure I would have access to sources that would kind of push me forward and make me a better candidate for a PhD program. The UK was less expensive than the US. And just the prospect of being able to live in another country for a while was another thing that was really exciting to me, because I wanted to get the experience of just going to another program, another system, and figuring out what that was like. So I highly recommend that if you are able to travel, if you are able to experience different educational systems, that you should. I think that there is definitely some benefits to Oxford that the US could adapt or adopt. And there are definitely some things that Oxford needs to adopt from the United States, if you ask me. So there's that. I feel the same way about that portion of history. Which law school programs are you hoping to apply to, and why? So I get asked this question a lot. This is a reach, and ultimately I understand that this is a long shot, but I am going to do everything physically possible to try to get into YLS, so the law school at Yale. And there's a couple of reasons for this. One, it's the #1 law school. Like, that, we'll get that out of the way. But two, I will be living in New Haven. I will probably be very settled in living in New Haven. I don't want to have to move around a bunch during the last couple of years of my PhD/law degree. It's expensive to do that. And in addition to that, I like the program at Yale because it is more academically centered. Places like Harvard are known for creating really great litigators, really great corporate lawyers. And that's not what I want to do. That's not something I think I'd be very good at. So while I think it would be an interesting experience and definitely a beneficial experience, I really like the way that I like the reputation of Yale's law school, and that it's a bit more academically driven. And then Daisy said, maybe one day you can do a video on how to obtain archives for your research or something of that sort. So that is one of those videos that I just like cannot wait to make. Is doing videos about going to the archives and like figuring out which ones you need to go to. And I don't know that I'll be able to take like my camera with me in these archives, but I think it would just be so cool to like show you guys the process of being able to go to like the Library of Congress and like showing you guys that whole process. And oh, I'm just so excited. I know that's like a year or so from now at the very least, but that's one of the reasons I wanted to start my YouTube channel, is to show like all of the little bits and pieces of being an academic and going to conferences. And I know academics talk about how much they hate conferences, but I love them, or at least I do right now. And going to the archives and all that. So I'm just very excited. But yes, Daisy, there's definitely videos about that coming up. Okay, there's a question saying, I'm looking to apply to Cambridge for my master's because it has what I want before I apply to PhD programs. So my question is, how do you write your research proposal for Cambridge? So I have some videos about this coming up, so I don't want to spoil it too much, but I have a video coming up soon about the difference between research proposals, statements of purpose, and personal statements. One little quick shout out is that I actually have a consulting service where I help people with their research proposals and statements of purpose and applications. So if you want more one-on-one help, I do offer that. Oh, your name is Rebecca. Hello, Rebecca. And with research proposals, I always recommend being as detailed as physically possible. I was very detailed in my statement of purpose, which contained my research proposal. I'm actually curious. I can actually open up the one from Oxford. I'm going to do a video about reading my statement of purpose for Oxford, but I'll give you guys a preview because I figured that might be interesting for you all. Okay, so this is the one that I sent to, this is the one I sent to Cambridge. So in the Masters of Philosophy program in American History, I hope to research how enslaved women sought legal autonomy and freedom for themselves and their children throughout the British Atlantic world. My research will explore how the implementation of parta sequitur ventrem, a law which allowed the offspring of a slave to take on the status of their mother, affect legal cases where enslaved women sought freedom in the American colonies and mainland Britain. I'm most interested in demonstrating the difference between parta sequitur ventrem in the American colonies and parta sequitur patrum in Britain in maintaining slavery and the control of women's bodies. So that's probably it's just a very small snippet of the research proposal or the statement of purpose that I sent to them. But I also went into what archives am I going to be using, what secondary literature am I focused on, and where am I how did I develop this idea, and that kind of thing. So there are videos coming about that. And if you want more one-on-one help, I'm happy to do that. So you guys can check out my website if you guys want to book a consultation for some one-on-one assistance. But don't worry, there are videos coming because I know that everyone's in soon to be application mode. So there'll definitely be videos all about that. Okay, now I need to cite this. Oh, geez. I nearly dropped my computer. I'm just going to open a window really quick because it's very warm. I see that Chloe and Katie are connecting over in the chat, which is excellent. Oh, so okay. Thanks, Rebecca. I'm really glad that that was helpful for you guys. I'm trying to my opening paragraph for my statement of purpose that got me into Yale is actually a lot more detailed, and I plan on doing a video on it. I'm going to be doing a video on how I got into Yale once I get to Yale, mostly because I want to get B-roll shots on campus, which sounds really dorky, but nonetheless, I want to get footage on campus for that video. I'm sorry to hear that, Daisy. Daisy said that she wished she could defer enrollment and take a gap year because of COVID. I thought about it for a second about deferring, but honestly, I'm so miserable without academia. I am back riding horses, and it's just not for me anymore. And I'm ready to be back in school. I mean, technically, I'm still in school. Chloe says I'd die without academia. That's probably true. But even though like I'm still focusing on my dissertation, once this is out, like once I'm done with this dissertation, while I'm looking forward to having like a mini break, I would miss school and academia too much to take a gap year, but that's just me. COVID is definitely making things challenging, and I feel your pain, and it has been an emotional roller coaster for myself, and I'm sure for all of you. So I feel that, but I think that there are ways that we can find motivation and find positivity, even though things are a bit challenging at the moment. So Katie said that one of her professors made the point that because you can't even travel right now, then what else would you do with a gap year? And I get that. I miss traveling for one, but also like I just don't want to be riding horses full time anymore. Becca Baker said, can you share some of your best online resources for research, like apps or websites? So the thing is that my research is primarily like in books, on JSTOR. I check WorldCat, Archive Grid. I'm gonna do a video on like library sources and how to kind of do preliminary research, but there's no like specific app necessarily. I would say just using your library sources and using books and those kinds of things is just super important. I think the most challenging thing is like if you're not in school and you don't have that type of access to JSTOR or Google Doc, or not Google Docs, but Google Scholar and those kinds of resources, because they are so important. But I would say you can start with secondary literature, start with the books. Daisy said that she is currently working on going to law school, and the only reason she'd consider a gap year is to save money. Yeah, so I don't know what I would do if like I was going to be remote at the beginning of having started my master's at Oxford. For me, I was using the master's as a way to get to the PhD, so I probably still would have done it, but it just depends on your personal goals and it depends on your financial situation. Chloe also mentioned that there are Facebook groups and other kinds of resources that you can use to connect with other people in order to get PDFs and other things like articles. So that's something to look into as well. I know that like the transfer community at UCLA is super helpful. So if that's something you need, then I would check out resources of the like. Are you kidding me? I'm looking at this one resource and they didn't cite their sources, which is not cool. Ugh, it's annoying. Chloe just said not cool. Yeah, not you need to cite your sources. And historians definitely need to, because I need the sources. I need to know where they got them. Of course, someone said that this is a super helpful live and that they appreciate, which of course I'm happy to do it. That's what my YouTube is all about. So if you guys have any questions, you guys are always free to message me. I am sorry if it takes me a minute to reply, but I will get back to you eventually. Also, if you guys could comment that if you guys like these lives and if I should do more of them. This is the first one I've ever done, so I wasn't sure what I should or shouldn't do. But let me know if you guys ever have any ideas for things that I can do to be more helpful or entertaining, I suppose. Okay, I'll stay on for a couple more minutes. I'm just gonna look for this one resource. Nope. So at the moment, I found a letter that I want to use, but I need to cite it. So I am pulling up Mendeley and creating a citation for myself. So letter. Katie said that that she enjoyed the live and that she likes being able to connect with people in the comments as well as kind of interact with the live, which is what I want. I want you guys to be able to get to know each other too and build a little redhead academic community. All right, so I'm gonna stay on for like 5 more minutes if you guys want to answer, if you guys have any other questions. So wait for just another minute and then I'll be ending the live and continue to work on this dissertation. I'm gonna go get coffee and that is my plan. So if you guys have any other questions, then go ahead and submit them now so that I can answer them before I go caffeinate. So I don't know why my YouTube video isn't uploading. Coffee, Chloe. Jesus. Chloe, I actually got the coffee milk tea for boba guys. So yes, I will be a little extra twitchy tonight for our study session. Hope you do another sometime and good luck with your work tonight. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you were able to pop in at least for a little while. And I will hopefully do many more of these in the coming months. And definitely once I get to Yale, because I will be alone with my dog and my and I will need some kind of entertaining interaction, even if it's not necessarily in person, which is unfortunate, but gonna work with what we got. Okay. No, I don't have an attachment. Citation. Oh, dang it. Citation. All right, so we've got 2 more minutes before I wrap it up. And Daisy said, I haven't had milk tea in so long. I need to get it sometime soon. That's the one part I think I'm going to, well, it's not the part I'm going to miss the most, but it's definitely going to be a part I'm going to miss a lot about NorCal and living in California is the milk tea quality. So I don't think very many people know this, but I'm quarter Chinese. And I just remember growing up, and my grandma would take me to this kind of like Chinese marketplace near her old house. And we used to get boba, and we used to call it bubble tea back then. And I was so obsessed with it. I can't even remember a time when I wasn't drinking it. Like, I feel like I've been drinking bubble tea since I was like 5 or 6. So I'm just addicted. That is coming, Katie. I definitely have a video coming all about Zotero and Mendeley and how I manage my citations and everything. So that is on the way. Don't worry. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I'm going to go ahead and caffeinate, get some dinner, work on this dissertation. It's going to be a long night, but check out Friday's vlog because what I do for the rest of the day is going to be in that video. So hope you guys all have a good evening or day if it's tomorrow for you guys. And I will do another one of these soon. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye, everyone.